Did she tell you the good news?
Oh, no. What's the good news?
You're driving me to Phoenix!
Well, that's true. Today we are driving to Phoenix, but we're not taking Aunt Edna with us. Today we're driving to Phoenix, Arizona to find the filming locations for Just One of the Guys, a great movie from 1985. The problem is, there's not a lot to see. A lot of the movie was filmed indoors, and then a lot of the locations have either been torn down or changed. But we're gonna drive around and see what we can track down, and it should be a good time. So, let's go see what we can find. So I'm sure most of you already recognize this house right here behind me. That's because it's one of the few locations that still looks almost exactly like it did in the movie. This is, of course, where Terry and Buddy lived with their absentee parents. And if you come behind the house and on the side, you can just barely see where Terry's room was. She had that balcony that overlooked the pool, and she walks out onto the balcony in the morning and looks at the backyard. And it's right there where that blue curtain is. It's now covering the balcony, but that's where Terry's room was. Now, we don't see the outside of the house a lot in the movie, but there are a few good shots when Terry's getting picked up for school. And like I said, not a lot has changed here except for maybe the door color. It still has the flagpole, and even the house next door still looks the same. Now, this is my first time coming to this location, and I gotta say, this is another one that's really surreal to be at because it looks just like it did in the movie. Like, as soon as I came around the corner, I recognized it right away. So I love locations like that. When Kevin's taking Terry to school, we see them coming down this street, and we see them pass right by this house, which has since added a garage. However, the other section of the house still looks the same. Kevin then pulls into the parking lot and parks somewhere in this lot where I'm standing, and you can see this house right behind him. Luckily, that roof line is still exactly the same. Now, in the movie, Terry attends Edwina Pearl High School. In real life, it's Coronado High, which is still a functioning school. However, the entire front of it has been completely remodeled and looks nothing like it did in the movie. That's why I said Kevin parks somewhere in this lot. I know it's somewhere over here to the right. I just don't know exactly where because everything here has been changed. Now, this building right over here, we see Terry walking over in this area when she's going to meet up with her friends. And as the camera pans out, we get a better shot of this building and the mural that's on the front of it. Unfortunately, that building was demolished and replaced with this building. However, they saved the mural that was on the front of it, which I think is pretty amazing. And you can see there it is. That's the mural that you see in the movie. And from what I read, they dismantled this mural and moved it piece by piece to its current location. Also, if you look towards the middle of the campus, you can see an older building that still exists. Notice that roof line with all of the points on top. That can be seen in the movie. So I guess they did remodel the front of the school, but some of the older buildings still exist on campus. I just wish they wouldn't have torn down that building in front. So right here is where that building used to be that had the mural on it. I believe it was the auditorium. And then right over here is the building that they moved it to. Just glad that they saved the mural. Now, this same school and that same mural can also be seen in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, but that's another video. After school, Terry and Denise go to grab a snack at a local ice cream parlor, and that was actually filmed somewhere right here inside of Leatherbys ice cream shop. Leatherbys is long gone. Leatherbys ice cream does still exist. However, from what I read, the one here in Arizona for some reason didn't do very well and closed shortly after. But somewhere right here was Leatherbys. I was able to find the address, and it was this building. I just for some reason couldn't find a unit number, so I don't know which store it was. Now, I was able to find an old picture from a newspaper that was taken inside of that Leatherbys ice cream shop, and the interior matches exactly with what we see in the movie. The tables and chairs are exactly the same. Now, if any locals are watching this and you maybe remember where exactly Leatherbys ice cream was, let me know in the comments. So Terry gets angry because she finds out that her story didn't get submitted to the writing contest, and she thinks it's just because she's a girl. So she decides to cut off all her hair, get dressed up, switch schools, and resubmit her story as a boy. So Terry dresses herself up to look like a boy and transfers to Sturgis Wilder High School. In real life, that was Scottsdale High, and unfortunately, you guessed it, it's since been torn down. It used to be located right there behind me. Now, this is actually really unfortunate because a lot of the movie was actually filmed at that high school. So a lot of the scenes that I would have liked to match up no longer exist. Now, Scottsdale High was already shut down at the time of filming, so supposedly they just took over the whole campus and kind of made it production center and even built some sets inside of the school for some other scenes. Now, there are a couple of things here at this intersection to let us know that this is where Scottsdale High used to be. Number one is those columns that you can see right there on the corner. Those are a nod to Scottsdale High School that had similar columns right in front. Also, on the street sign right there, there's a sign with the years that says Scottsdale High. So we do know for sure that this is where Scottsdale High was, just unfortunately, it no longer exists. Now, it's kind of hard to tell in the movie, but Rick actually lives in an apartment building. That right down there on the right bottom corner would have been Rick's place. So after school, Terry gives Rick a ride home, and as they come around the corner, we get a pretty good shot of that house across the street. It would have come around the corner right here, and as you can see, that house across the street is now pretty well covered. That's where it is. They then finish rounding the corner and park right here in front of Rick's house, and you can see that house right across the street. It has been remodeled a bit, but those three windows in front are still exactly the same. Now, when it shows them sitting in front of Rick's place, it doesn't really show the entire building. I guess that's why I never realized that it's an apartment complex. I always just assumed it's a house. But inside this apartment is where Terry finds out that Rick is secretly a James Brown fan. I guess for some reason it's weird to be a James Brown fan.
I feel good. Yeah!
Now later in the movie, Terry comes back to visit Rick, and this shot is taken between two palm trees. The camera's actually on the porch up there, looking right in between those two trees. Of course, I'm not going to walk up onto those people's porch, so you just got to imagine the camera is looking out this way, and you can see that house behind Terry as she's walking across the front yard. Rick then comes out, and he's standing right in between the two trees. He puts his leg up on that wall, and Terry's leaning up against the tree on the right. It's really cool to see that so much has not changed here. So yep, pretty cool. Right there, that was Rick's apartment. And cool that even the two palm trees are still the same. So Terry's trying to help Rick get a date, and in the process is approached by Sandy, who will always be Velvet to me. And Sandy has a huge crush on Terry and tries to convince her to go on a double date. Terry reluctantly agrees just to help out Rick. Now, the cave where Terry and Rick go for their double date is right here in Papago Park. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. This is my first time here. I apologize to all the locals watching this if I'm not. But right up there, the hole in the rock, that's where they go for their double date. However, according to what I've read, it was only an establishing shot that was actually filmed here at Papago Park. The interiors of the cave were actually a set that they built over at the high school. So the only thing actually filmed here was that one establishing shot. You can see there's quite a few people up there. I guess this is a pretty popular spot. But no need for me to go up there if it's not where they filmed the movie. I guess I could go up there just to enjoy nature and enjoy the hike. But it's hot, so I won't. Oh well, my loss. Back at school, Rick's sick of getting pushed around and bullied by Greg Tolan. Greg Tolan, of course, played by the amazing William Zabka, arguably one of the best bullies of the 1980s. Am I right? Anyways, he's sick of getting bullied by him, so he decides to stand up to Greg and humiliate him in front of the entire school. And to make things worse, he also asks Greg's girlfriend Deborah to prom. She says yes, which makes Terry extremely jealous because Terry secretly has a crush on Rick. Now the big ending, of course, takes place at prom. That's where Greg finally beats up Terry. That's where Kevin shows up and finds out that Terry's been pretending to be a boy. That's where Rick finds out that Terry's actually a girl. That's where all the chaos happens. Now, watching this movie as a kid, I always thought that was filmed at the beach. Of course, now that I know where the movie was filmed, I know that that doesn't make sense. In real life, that was filmed at Big Surf Water Park, and I believe, at least at the time, they had one of the largest wave pools, and that's the pool that we see Greg throw Terry into. Now, unfortunately, what you see right here behind me, this is where Big Surf Water Park used to be. Now, Big Surf actually closed down a while ago, but everything was still here, and for a while they were just doing private events, but just recently they started bulldozing everything, and it's now going to become apartments, I believe. So you can see now all that's left is just piles of dirt. Everything is gone. I knew that Big Surf had closed down, but I was still hoping that maybe, you know, the empty wave pool and that cabana was still here and we'd be able to get a shot of that. But unfortunately, nothing's left. I believe it was somewhere right out there where that big wave pool was, and that's where the prom took place. Actually, we're able to see it right over here. This area, this was the big wave pool. So that means right over here is where the prom took place. Sadly, it's all just dirt now. So everything goes wrong at prom. Terry loses her boyfriend and her best friend, who is also the guy that she's in love with. So she takes a cab home and sadly walks up to the front door of her house. And that brings us back to the house where we started this wild adventure. And like I already said, not too much has changed on this house. It now has a red front door. In the movie, the front door is green. But other than that, not too much has changed here. Maybe some of the bushes and shrubbery, but not too much else has changed. And I gotta tell you, that makes me really happy. So a sad and lonely Terry sits down and starts typing up a new story about her recent adventures at Sturgis Wilder High, and then returns to her old life at Edwina Pearl High School. She also finds out that her story was submitted and wins the contest. Now for the ending of the movie, we're actually back in Southern California. The ending was filmed on a backlot right here behind me at Warner Brothers Studios. And I don't know if I'm the only one, but I always felt like the ending of this movie was kind of weird. Like it didn't really fit with the rest of the movie. You could definitely tell that it was filmed at a studio. So the entire final scene of the movie was filmed right here on this street. That building right there on the left, that was the Sun Tribune where Terry worked. The camera would have been down there at the other end, pointed right towards where I'm standing. Now I'm gonna do my best to try and match up all the shots of that final scene. I don't know if I'll be able to get them exact, but I'll do my best. So we see Buddy coming down the street in Terry's car, and as he pulls over, there's a building that you can see on the left, another building with an arched door, and then you can just barely see a building with columns. Kind of hard to see, but it's there. Now this isn't the right angle, but there's the building that you can see on the left, there's the building with the arched door, and there's the building with the columns. You can see a lot more of it now because the camera would have been shooting from the sidewalk right in front of the Sun Tribune building, which is this one right here. And notice as Buddy's pulling up to the curb, you can see how it curves to the right. Now again, this isn't the exact angle, but it's a little bit closer. You can see how the curb curves to the right there. And again, this is the Sun Tribune building right here on my right side. Again, not the exact angle, but pretty close. So Buddy parks the car on the curb, and as he jumps out, you can see some stores right behind him. That would have been those buildings right there on the right. You get another shot of those stores when they turn around and Rick's leaning up against the car. Would have been pretty close to this shot right here. Again, not exact, but pretty close. Terry and Rick stand right in front of the front doors of the Sun Tribune, discussing how they feel for each other, right here in front of these doors. Now for this next part, they use a little bit of camera trickery. We see the biker lady come around the corner, and that building right behind her is the Sun Tribune building. And those newspaper dispensers are the same ones that Buddy was just leaning up against. Now she's coming away from the Sun Tribune building. There's Buddy leaning up against the newspaper dispensers again, but once again there's those newspaper dispensers behind her. There's Buddy standing in front of him, and now she pulls up in front of the Sun Tribune building. Of course, she was just going back and forth on the same street. This street right here is the one that she comes off of and makes a left. Again, that's the Sun Tribune building, which she would have been coming away from. She then pulls up in front of the Sun Tribune building. Buddy comes over and gets on the back of her motorcycle. They ride off. Terry and Rick ride off in her car, and everybody lives happily ever after. Well, that's gonna do it for this video. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.